Good video here from Ade. I just want to expand on some of the things he touched on in this video. So as we know, Josh Warrington has split from Frank Warren and re-signed with Eddie Hearn. I think that Frank Warren actually did a pretty good job for Josh Warrington. Warrington initially left Hearn because he felt like he wasn't getting the attention he needed from Eddie Hearn, the push. So he left Hearn, joined Warren, and got exactly what he wanted. But in boxing, the landscape changes all the time, and therefore as a fighter, you have to stay light on your feet. You can't get tied down with one promoter for too long. You have to keep your options open, which is what Josh Warrington appears to be doing. So now he's signed back with Eddie Hearn because he thinks that's the place to be right now. So no problem with anything Josh Warrington has done in his career by way of switching between different promoters. Now, the fact that Josh Warrington has left Frank Warren makes more sense of some of Warren's recent moves. Now, in this interview here on Seconds Out, Warren tries to insinuate that he didn't want to re-sign Josh Warrington because they're going to make the sanctioning body, is it the IBF that Warrington has the title for? I forget now. But whichever sanctioning body it is, they're going to make the Galahad rematch. And Frank Warren tries to insinuate in this interview that he didn't want to re-sign Warrington because he doesn't want to do the Galahad rematch. Now, you can believe that if you want. I don't believe it for a second. Josh Warrington is a very good ticket seller. Would Frank Warren really, turn his nose up at the opportunity to re-sign a very good ticket seller like that? It's not like Frank has got a load of good ticket sellers, is it? Just because there's one fight that he has to have, a mandatory, that Frank doesn't like, he's going to turn his back on re-signing the guy, possibly to a multi-fight or multi-year deal? Nah, I don't buy it, Frank. Frank Warren is a very proud individual, and I think he's being economical with the truth, and I think he's being a little disingenuous here, or more than a little. But the moves that Frank Warren has made recently that I'm talking about, which makes sense now, are him putting Daniel Dubois versus Joyce on pay-per-view, because as Ade talked about in this video, Joyce and Daniel Dubois are not household names in the UK. Outside of hardcore boxing circles, very few people know them. And as such, this fight between them would have been a great opportunity to expose them to a wider audience, to expose them to the casuals and actually build them up. But instead, they're putting this fight behind a pay-per-view paywall. So they've missed an opportunity there to build these fighters. It's only going to be hardcores that are going to buy this pay-per-view. Well, I'm sure that Joyce wanted a lot of money for this fight. And I think ideally Frank Warren would have wanted to do it as a standard BT show rather than pay-per-view. Back in the days when Frank Warren's business was a little healthier, he probably would have taken the hit in the pocket, on the show and lost money in order to pay Joyce and Dubois what they wanted as an investment for the future. Building both of these fighters up or whoever wins the fight. So back in the days when his business was doing better, I think that's what Frank Warren would have done. But right now, Frank Warren's business isn't doing very well. He's losing money year on year. We're talking about millions of pounds a year he's losing. Just go to Company's House and look up Queensberry Promotions. It's all public record. As such, as I say, I think that's why he's done the pay-per-view. And also, I think that's why he has signed Daniel Dubois to this 5-year extension. And as I said in the recent video about the Dubois, 5-year extension, it's never a good idea to sign contracts that long if you're a fighter, especially if your promoter has fallen on hard times and is not doing well financially. And that isn't just Frank Warren, any promoter who's in that situation. It's not good to sign long-term contracts with them, because if their ship starts going down, they're going to try and drag you down with them because they see you as their life raft. So they're going to cling on to you for dear life because they think that the survival of their business hinges on you. You don't want to be in that situation because, again, things can get very ugly. And I'm not just talking about Frank Warren. Many promoters have been in situations like this where they don't want their business to go down. So the few fighters they have left who are somewhat commodities, they hold on to them. They don't want to let them leave. Even if they can't provide the fighter the opportunities which they're contractually obligated to, it ends up in some long litigation process where the fighter is having to spend loads of money on legal fees. Obviously, the promoter himself is spending loads of money on legal. It just gets into an absolute mess. So, again, any fighters out there who are looking to sign with promoters, seriously, one of the first things you want to do is go to company's house and check out the health of their business. Are they turning a profit? You know, how stable is that situation? Because if you're with an unstable company, then things can happen to you in your career. Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the examples I gave in the previous video, for example, like Andre Ward when he was with the Goosens. Andre Ward wasn't getting the opportunities he wanted. He tried to get out of his contract because of that, but got dragged into this long legal battle where he lost probably some of the best years of his career during that legal battle with the Goosens. When Dan Goosen died, that's when Andre Ward, I believe shortly after that, was finally released from his contract. Yeah. And again, that was a promotional company that wasn't doing very, very well. Goosen Tudor. Was it Goosen Tudor or Tudor? They weren't doing very well. This is what often happens with companies like that. Okay. So, and as I previously explained, some people are going to think, well, the fighters shouldn't be trying to get out of their contract before it's expired. Because like here with Josh Warrington, for example, his contract is expired. That's why he's been able to split with Frank Warren without any shenanigans. Okay. But it's not that straightforward all the time. As I said, if a promoter can't provide you with the opportunities which he's legally obligated to provide you with in the contract, then you can say, okay, well, I want to get out of the contract then. And that's when a legal battle can ensue. That's when it's like going through the contracts with a fine-tooth comb, interpreting different words and different terms. This is where the lawyers come in. Yeah? That's what lawyers are paid to do, find loopholes in the language in the contract. So it's why sometimes contracts can take a long time to draw up because they're getting the language to be so precise that there's no interpretation and there's no way to get out of it. Yeah, at least that's the idea. But again, some lawyers know the law better than others. Some lawyers know legalese better than others. So anyway, just a quick video on that about Frank Warren and what's going to happen to his business, because right now he's got no world champions left, as far as I know. Tyson Fury, of course, is still with Frank Warren, and that could be his ace in the hole. But Tyson Fury doesn't have a world title at the moment, and he's based in the United States. So even though that's a great fighter to have, if he's not fighting in the UK, it's not really doing that much for Frank Warren's business. His rematch with Deontay Wilder is going to be in the US. That's going to bring in pay-per-view revenue. Obviously, Frank Warren will get a cut of that. But who else has he got other than that? Anthony Yarde? I mean, you know, Yarde is a good prospect / contender. I guess you have to call him a contender now. He did fight for the title. I mean, Billy Joe Saunders is gone. Josh Warrington's gone. Is he still got Cole Frampton? Again, Frampton's going to be based in the States, so that's not much good for Frank Warren. So he's really pinning all his hopes on Daniel Dubois, hence the 5-year deal, and Joe Joyce potentially. But I suspect that Joe Joyce is not on a very long-term contract with Frank Warren. And here's another thing I want to talk about, because a lot of people were baffled as to why why Daniel Dubois would sign this long contract. Well, you know, because they're saying who's advising him and what's his manager doing, all this kind of stuff. Well, I don't know what kind of relationship Daniel Dubois' manager has with Frank Warren. I believe his manager is Martin Bowers. That's his manager and trainer. So I don't know what kind of relationship he has with Frank Warren. But what I can tell you for a fact after following this sport and being involved in this sport for many decades, there are certain managers who have very cozy relationships with certain promoters. And so when you go to do a management deal, that manager is often just a proxy for the promoter. So basically the promoter and the manager are supposed to do different jobs. I mean, you see the way Joe Gallagher is, for example, the way he talks to Eddie Hearn. Joe Gallagher is quite combative with Eddie Hearn. That's the way it's supposed to be. Joe Gallagher's supposed to have a different goal in mind for Callum Smith than Eddie Hearn has, a slightly different goal. Or they may have different goals in certain situations. Okay? The manager is supposed to be the closest to the fighter rather than the trainer, and he's really, really supposed to look out for the fighter's best interests. But sometimes when you have a manager that's actually really cozy with the promoter, he's just doing the promoter's work, just getting paid a manager's fee for it. You understand? That goes on. There's a lot of that in boxing. I don't know if that's the case with Daniel Dubois. Maybe they just got offered a lot of money up front and said, you know what, we'll take that. But 5 years is a long time. With Joe Joyce, on the other hand, I suspect he isn't on a particularly long contract. Sam Jones, again, appears to be quite combative with Frank Warren and battled very, very hard to get Joe Joyce the kind of money that he feels like he deserves for taking the risk against Dubois. So if, let's say, Joe Joyce was to beat Daniel Dubois, Joyce might keep his options open. He might think, you know what? I'm going to take this victory and go elsewhere. Yeah, I suspect that Sam Jones wouldn't have advised Joe Joyce to take a particularly long contract with Warren. I could be wrong, but that's my suspicion. So another thing I want to talk about as well with regards to this Dubois-Joyce pay-per-view is the undercard. Some people have rightly brought this to my attention because the undercard for AJ versus Dylan White was a pretty strong undercard. If we have a look at it here. So you had AJ, Dylan White top of the bill. You had Kevin Mitchell versus Barroso on the undercard. You had Tony Bellew versus Masterneck. That was a really good fight. Bellew versus Masterneck. You had Luke Campbell versus Mendy. That was a really good fight. You had Eubank Jr. versus Spike O'Sullivan. That was a really exciting fight. Paulie Malignaggi in a nothing fight. And then you had Derek Chisora against some journeyman. But, Chisora is still a stalwart of British boxing. So that was a pretty damn good card. Like, not the most amazing card you've ever seen, but it's pretty strong. Is Joyce Dubois going to have a card anywhere near that strong? Because, again, we're comparing like for like here. Top of the bill, British heavyweight title fight, AJ versus Dylan White. They charged, I think, $16.95. Was it $15.95 or $16.95 for it? I forget. This one is going to be £20. Is it going to have an undercard as strong as this? Probably not, because who has Frank Warren got to put on there? And that's when the hypocrisy comes up again. When Frank Warren said that this was tosh. That's what he called this card. Tosh. He said that there's no way this should be on pay-per-view. But yet, this is on pay-per-view. And don't get it twisted. The top of the bill is a great fight. It's a fight I'm really intrigued by, to be honest. I'm probably looking forward to this fight more than the Wilder Fury rematch, truth be told. I'm really intrigued by this fight. And I might do another video on it in terms of the tactics I think both guys can employ. So, yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about all the points I've raised in this video. How long can Frank Warren continue with a business that isn't making money? He's hemorrhaging a lot of top fighters. He's putting most of his eggs into one basket with Daniel Dubois. He's got guys like Frampton and Fury fighting overseas, and how long are they going to be with him? Because again, I have to imagine that they haven't signed extremely long contracts with him either. Why would they? It's like, again, going back to the music industry. Artists which sign these deals that give the record label a tremendous amount of power over them are usually artists who are starting out in the music business. They're not normally experienced artists, because an experienced artist, an artist who has a high market value, when he's shopping around for a new deal, he's going to try and get a deal that favors him more so than it favors the record label. But when you get a young, inexperienced artist who's just trying to break into the industry, that's normally when they sign their whole life away to the record company. Yeah. And that's what it appears to be with Daniel Dubois here, that he's signed 5 years of his career away. And I don't know whether his contract has expired yet, his current contract, because this is an extension. So it could be even longer than 5 years from now when his contract expires. So, man, I really hope that, Daniel Dubois has a miraculous turn of good fortune, and that 5-year deal that he signed with Frank Warren doesn't come back to haunt him. I really hope so, because he's a very promising young fighter. Obviously, he's young, and some people are saying, yeah, he can afford to have 5 years where he doesn't maybe get the fights that he wants to get or isn't promoted in the best way. But can he really? Because in boxing, the sooner you start, the sooner you finish, generally. Mike Tyson was world champion by the age of 20. But by the age of 31, 32, he was pretty much finished. The sooner you start is the sooner you finish. Fighters who turn pro late tend to have, a lot of them tend to have longer careers. They tend to go on longer. There are some exceptions, of course, but that's how it usually is. George Foreman became the oldest heavyweight champion in history, and he started his professional career fairly young, but he had a gap of 10 years where he was away from the ring. So, that was obviously him recuperating, resting, etc. I mean, not intentionally. He might have decided to initially quit boxing for good, but that's what happened. He got a lot of rest and recuperation during that 10 years. If Daniel Dubois is fighting solidly for the next 5 years, that's 5 years of wear and tear on your body, in the training camps, in the fights, so on and so forth. So by the time how old is Daniel Dubois now? 20, 22, 23? So if he comes out of the contract when he's 27, 28, I mean, he might not have that many years left in the game by that point. We don't know whether Daniel Dubois is the real deal yet. If he turns out to be more like a David Price than an Anthony Joshua or a Tyson Fury, then it's going to be a sad story over there for him. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about all the points I've raised in this video. It's Hatman, I'm out.
Hatman merch is now available. We got t-shirts, vests, hoodies, and more. Just click the link below. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.